Bienvenidos todos. Gracias por estar aquí. I am so happy. Welcome everyone to be talking to somebody that there's been a mutual admiration here happening and mutual love and support. We did a couple of podcast episodes where she interviewed me and they disappeared into the ether, but we're still working on it and she's going to be coming on to my podcast. I'll be coming on to hers. And we've also decided to collaborate and we'll send you more information about that, an event in New York. And so please help me welcome Cynthia Santiago-Borbon. Bienvenido, Cynthia.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you. And I know that everyone will fall in love with you the way that I fall in love with you and continuously just get to celebrate you and to create with you because you're such a unique and special human. So before we get into this conversation, I want to read her bio because that's how we do. And then we get into it. And we're in for a very juicy conversation about how the Orishas come through the business and show up in the business, in our businesses, and her journey and her ancestral reclamation and her own healing path and the work that she's bringing into the world. So I can't wait for that. But here's your bio. Here's Cynthia Santiago-Borbon's bio. With over 2 decades of expertise in the mental health and well-being space, Cynthia Santiago-Borbon, a healer, licensed psychotherapist, transformational coach, spirituality teacher, empath, and priestess of Obatala, has supported thousands of clients to liberate themselves from societal conditioning and intergenerational trauma so they can thrive in their lives, in their relationships, and their careers and business. Cynthia's multidisciplinary spiritual approach as a healer, speaker, strategist, and entrepreneur has always been deeply rooted in liberation, equity, anti-oppression. She provides numerous services that include private coaching, group coaching, workshops, and retreats.
Yay.
2 decades, girl, 2 decades, like dos décadas de servicio and showing up in this work. Cynthia, as we begin today, I really want to ask, how have your ancestors shaped the woman, the being that you are today, and the sacred work that you're bringing into the world?
Oh, thank you. I'm getting choked up. I can feel them around me right now. And I'm so grateful to you and to the people in the world that are doing more and more of this. As you know, you've been doing this work a long time. And there was a period when there were not many of us talking about this, and certainly we weren't talking about it openly because there's a lot of backlash for it and continues to be. But I have been proclaiming for a long time that there is no way I would be where I'm at without the assistance of my ancestors. And that first piece in which they helped me was to actually help me heal, from all the very things that I teach now around societal conditioning, to help me heal from trauma in a very real concrete way, to help me remember who and what I come from. Because the story that we've been given so long about who we are in the world as people of color, as brown people, as Black people, as people that are non-white, is that we come from nothing, and nothing could be further from the truth. And what my ancestors taught me in connecting with them was the truth, the stories that came way, way, way before colonization, of the great ways in which we lived, the great ways in which we connected, and who I really was and what I really came from. And that process helped me heal internally in such a powerful way that it then helped me move forward with my dreams, with my desires. It made me get stronger. It helped me to see that I was capable of things that at the time there was no models of around me. There were no models in my family. There were no models really on the television, certainly when we were growing up, right, Vanessa?
Right.
I mean,
Totally.
we're getting more now, but back when we were kind of coming up, there was nothing really, or close to nothing. And so now they taught me to see what was not evident around me. And I give thanks to them every day. I do nothing in this world anymore without understanding that I walk with an entire tribe of people that are here to assist me, to support me, and to help me so that I can continue to assist and support others.
I love that so much, and I'm emotional because I feel them too. I feel your peoples, I feel my peoples, and I'm so incredibly, incredibly, incredibly grateful that the West African traditions are becoming more visible. Because I had the great honor of being exposed to Santeria and Yoruba in different aspects through my dad, my mom, and while none of us are initiated, um, a deep respect, and then studying with Dr. Marta Moreno Vega in New York, right? And so I've always had a deep respect, an interest, uh, of reverence, understanding this is the foundation, people. This is the foundation, and this is where we all come from. And yet it's been denied, it's been covered up, and it's the time to be heard and seen. So thank you for, stepping into your tradition, reclaiming, doing the intense healing work, and then holding that beautiful space for us and for all of us, especially brown and black folks who have been denied their lineage and their story and their intuition and their spiritual heritage. I wanted to ask, how did, let me go into the usual and then I'll go into the specific for you, but
Okay.
I want to hear so much and I'm like, la, la, la. But I'm so excited. What were some of the patterns that you needed to break ancestrally from more recent ancestors, maybe, that kept you from being fully yourself, and doing the sacred work that you do? Was there anything that you needed to shift or heal or?
Oh, there was so much. There was so much, so we won't be able to cover it all today. But I can start by saying that one of the first things I remember needing to heal was my own perception of what I look like in the world. So, in other words, the color of my skin, the texture of my hair, the features on my face, the structure of my body, again, things change, right? All, now many of the things that I came to into my body as as a gift from God, are now very popular, but growing up they were not.
Right.
And the image of what I needed to look like was nothing what I look like. And so coming to even within my own family, right? The size of my nose was often a discussion about, my nose was too big. And so things like taking photos, for instance, things that you need to run your business, right? Taking photos, being on videos, all those things I was so terribly uncomfortable with, that because I felt ugly. And so that was one of the things I had to heal from. Like, how do I look in the world and what am I trying to fit into? And is in fact was to liberate myself from this concept of what beauty was, or what it was to look good. And, and that also came very much through my ancestors. Like, they showed me images and they literally started teaching me what was beautiful about me, and coming into that connection with them. So, I mean, I can go on and on, Vanessa, about the things I needed to heal. I needed to heal my voice, my ability to speak up. That was a big one for me, like the disempowerment that comes when your people have been historically colonized and made to seem unimportant and small. But the ancestors prior to that were very powerful beings and understood that, in fact, our power comes from within, not over people, right? And they taught me that. They literally taught me that. And so learning to use my voice to speak up, understanding that I had a message and a gift that I also came in the world to share, that they very much wanted me to impart with others, was the courage that they gave me to start sharing that message. That was one of the other things, being able to stand in that and to speak even on a stage, or to do a speaking interview like this with you or engagement, right? Like, the ability to even do that. You would have met me years ago and I was terrified of this stuff, because what I was taught through various systems and institutions and experiences was that I didn't speak well, I didn't write well, I didn't do all these things well, and I didn't fit into that norm. And so they helped me heal that. I mean, I can go on and on for hours. What they
No, but
helped me heal, but they helped me heal so many aspects, including the ones I just shared.
And thank you for bringing that up because it's important for us to recognize. that not everyone now or even in the past looked out and saw themselves reflected in society, right? Because you're like an incredibly beautiful, gorgeous woman inside and out. And there's so much beauty, you know, in all races, all cultures, and all parts of the world. And yet, this image that we see, even like we hear with India with bleaching creams, and we hear that almost every country, the lighter you are, the higher in society you are, the more likely you are to succeed, et cetera, et cetera. So, what you're saying is really important for people here listening. And thank you for that, because the beauty, the voice, intrinsic, like this is like our essence of being able to accept ourselves. And so this is really important that you're sharing that, and very important for folks who are brown and black who have not been reflected in any way, shape, or form, just through, like you said, minimization, right? Like minimized. What are some of the gifts that you've leaned into and with your ancestors and your lineage?
Oh, wow. I mean, I think just being the gift of being able to heal, right? That was one of the things they taught me pre like taking a Reiki course, pre any of that. When I look back on the journey of how I, can now call myself a healer and a healer that helps other healers and help people heal in a kind of all aspect of their lives, they taught me that ability. And on a very concrete, pragmatic level, right? People will ask, well, what does that mean? It means I literally sat in meditation and I sat in front of my ancestral altar and asked them to reveal to me what I had come into this world to do. And they literally started showing me pictures. They showed up as like pictures in my mind of all the things that I had done over the course of my life, right? And up until a certain point, when I'm saying this, I was probably about 27. And I had not, to me, I still felt like I didn't know what I was here to do. Like, what's my purpose? You know how people are always asking, what's my purpose? And I really felt like up until that point, I didn't know what my purpose was. I felt like I was just kind of going along with the flow, like wherever I would land up in a job or wherever I would kind of get some work. But the truth is that that's not what was happening at all. They showed me that I had actually been on a course of empowering and healing people since I was really like 21 years old,
Mhm.
in terms of a career, because
Yeah.
the work I had done had always been around helping and serving others to heal something and to empower themselves. They're really the ones that taught me my gift was, in fact, to help others liberate themselves emotionally and psychologically, because that's what I had been doing all along since, like I said, I was like 21. So they reveal that to me. And that came through literally just sitting in meditation and asking those powerful questions of what am I here to do? And believing that I was going to get an answer and the answer would come back.
Oh my God, I love that. I love that. And what an incredible moment. Like, I could just imagine you and like, you're like, wait a minute. Yeah, this clicks, this clicks, this clicks. Um, so you are a licensed therapist, and I have a lot of them in my community, a lot of folks who are now looking to create businesses because the practices within, the hierarchy of licensed therapy can be burnout worthy, right? Like, this is what people tell me. When did you make the decision to go out on your own?
So I made the actual decision in my mind probably about 15 years ago.
Mhm.
Honestly, in my mind, it was like, I am so done with this stuff. Because even back then, I couldn't really consider myself a pioneer in the sense that, and again, I really truly believe this came through my ancestors, and as we'll talk about the Orishas, but being able to see what the limitations were early on of the way in which much therapy was practiced, and the ways in which it was not allowing the full, what I would call the full holistic self to come in. And so I saw that early on. And so I really was like, I really need, and I felt the call. I literally felt the call, like, you need to be doing your own thing. You need your own business. Now, honestly, it took me longer than that. And I think that's an important message to share with the audience, right? Because sometimes we want things so quickly and it looks like things are overnight success, and they aren't. It's really takes, time and work, right? And so, but 11 years ago is when I started the business and, made that decision to really go forward. Now, in all fairness, again, that didn't mean I just quit my job, right?
Right.
I actually did my business and my full-time job for a few years together. And then finally, I was able to, I guess about 6 years ago now, completely leave my full-time job and go completely on my own. So yeah, it was a journey. It's a journey like many things.
Thank you so much. And I love that you brought that up because lately, like I said, I was, first all my stuff was service, right? And then very cheap. And then finally, after years and years of service and free circles, then I charged. And then I did it while I was working my corporate job. And then I got laid off, which forced me. It was like I was kicked out by the universe and literally heard, do not go back. So there's this whole like trajectory of a journey. And when people see how skilled you are and everything that you've done and that you're doing, or that I'm doing, or other people who have been doing this for a long time, it didn't happen overnight. The reason we have this confidence, the reason we have a million stories to tell. And so for folks who are starting out, if you're hearing from somebody, quit your job, go out there and do it. Most of the time when people do that, they struggle because it's hard to create under duress. I've had to do it, but again, then I had already been doing it for so long that I was able to just do it because I already had expertise in the area. But for anyone who's like, I'm going to quit my job because I know I'm a healer, I have the certifications from the last couple of years, I'm going to do it. Think about it twice because it's really important to give yourself the economic stability as you're trying to build something and when you're still trying to figure out how you're going to build this. So I love that you shared that and you were completely transparent that it takes time. Question for you, when did you meet the Orishas? Were your family already in connection? And, in terms of initiation, was the decision hard? Was it a natural extension of who you were? How was that journey for you?
Yes. So no, I did not grow up in the Orisha tradition at all. In fact, I'm a typical story of that I was taught to be afraid of all of it. That in fact it was dark magic and the work of the devil and all this madness that's taught about it when in fact none of that is true. And once again, credit to the ancestors for bringing me on that journey. Really what happened to me was that I was starting to experience what I call a huge spiritual awakening. My life was kind of falling apart. I'd broken up with a boyfriend that I loved a lot at that time. And I was actually in a social work school. I was in graduate school. And I started praying to God. Because I was literally having these sort of almost outer body experiences. My hands would get huge, like wildly hot out of nowhere. I sometimes felt like I always describe, felt like I was levitating a little bit. I was walking on the ground, but it just felt very floaty. And I was also starting to have these very vivid dreams. All kinds of stuff was happening. And at the core of me, I knew that something spiritual was happening, but I felt no affiliation to a church or, to be honest, even Christianity, because my experiences in Christianity had been very oppressive. And so what I did was I prayed to God and I said, God, I really need a teacher. And I don't know who that is, but I have a belief that you will bring me that teacher. And sure enough, within a couple of months, I met the man who is now my godfather in the Orisha tradition, who initiated me. He's a priest of Shango. And I was literally brought to him by somebody else. And I had my first reading with him. And I have been with him ever since. It's going to be 26 years I've been in the tradition. And that's how I was introduced to the Orishas. I really knew nothing about them before then. And like I said, what I thought I knew was not even correct. And what I have learned about the Orishas and what continues to be a learning journey is the immense, incredible healing that they want to offer all of us and the world, and the ways in which they want to support our human journey and help us elevate and expand. That is what I've learned in this process. And all they want really back is our love and acknowledgement. And honestly, that's something that has been lost in many ways because of the ways in which the Orishas had to be hidden. And they
Right.
had to be hidden because, because of, colonialism. And so what we have now is a lot of a reemergence. The Orishas have been around a very, very, very long time. And now there's less secrecy about it. And more people are talking about them. And I feel that's really a good thing, because I will say this, Vanessa, that without Orisha, I would not be where I'm at in my life. And when we talk about Orisha, what we're talking about is really a pantheon of gods and goddesses of the West African Yoruba tradition. That is what we're really talking about. They, when Africans were enslaved and put through that very brutal process, inhumane process, one of the first things the colonizers did, was to strip them of their relationship to the divine. And that relationship to the divine was through the Orishas. We believe in a God, but we also understand that God has created other helpers, right? The way some people think about angels, or they think about other gods and goddesses, the Orishas are also a segment of helpers to God. And in that relationship, we get to request support and assistance. But what's also really important about the Orisha tradition that I think is really beautiful is that it honors reciprocity. It honors that we don't just take, right? That's what colonization did. It just came in and took resources, took people's lives, stripped, raped, right? In our relationship, in many indigenous relationships, right? Because that's an indigenous relationship as well.
Reciprocity, yes.
That reciprocity is a key component of that. So when we are talking about the Orishas, they often are represented in nature, right? How many people love the ocean, right? I love the ocean, want to go to the ocean. I feel so calm when I'm at the ocean. You hear people say, well, why? Because that is a deity, and that is Yemaya. Well, what I call Yemaya, she is known by many, many names across the world, right? But Yemaya is the great mother, the mother of all mothers. Of course, we feel nurtured and loved when we go near the ocean, right? So one of the things I would do, even as an individual, and then also as someone who might be seeking guidance from her in my business, because she often helps me in my business, would be to go to the ocean and offer her a earth-friendly offering, right? Because that's important. We're not there to pollute her. We are there to make sure whatever we give her is biodegradable, right? So fruit's a perfect example, but completely from the earth and biodegradable, right? And bring her an offering and talk to her about what I desire, how I want to grow in my business, what I want to do, but also to give her reverence and gratitude for what she's providing to me, right? That is the way in which our ancestors work through things. That is now, for many, they're starting to acknowledge that and see that, and that it's not wrong of us, but in fact, that our ancestors were very much in communion and in connection to each other, but also to the planet and to the forces in nature and to the earth itself.
Yes, yes. I'm just listening and I'm like transported here. I love it so much, so, so much.
Okay.
Thank you so much for that. I love it. I'm mesmerized and always called to the forces of nature as Orisha and just have such reverence. How do the Orishas show up in our business?
Well, I just spoke about it a little bit, but also, they come to us in dreams. They they speak to us in the ways that they speak to us to show us, give us direction. Honestly, my next phase of my business that I'm working on, I feel came directly from Obatala, which is my head Orisha, right? You get initiated into a specific Orisha, and mine is Obatala. And I really feel like Obatala often guides me to the next phase, right? So Obatala is the mountain, Obatala's expansion, Obatala um, has shown me that that as an Orisha, because that deity is in fact in charge of our like human consciousness on some level.
Mhm.
And so Obatala will often infuse me with ideas and will say, I literally will kind of, I will hear, and I say hear, and I want to be clear about that because I know a lot of people will be like, well, I don't hear voices. And it's not just about hearing a voice. Sometimes some people do, but it can also drop in as an idea, a sense, a compelling idea, right? Like that compelling feeling to move on to something new. And that's what Obatala has been in my life, my entire life and career since I got initiated under that Orisha, that in fact, I will start to feel a call or a pull to something. And that's how I feel like he's literally been guiding my business as well. I always say it's not just my business, it's his business really. And you know what I mean? And I'll be okay, so what are we doing next? Right. And I'll start to feel I start to get almost a sense of a discontent with what I'm doing. Not like I don't want to be doing it, but I'll start to feel like almost like a push for something else. And that is when I will start to sit in quiet and be like, okay, Obatala, tell me what it is that I should be working on next. And then I'll start getting ideas, And so that is the way for me, particularly in the way Orisha shows up. But there's so many different Orishas, right? My mother in the Orisha tradition is Oshun. And Oshun is very much about creativity. Oshun is the river. She is the fertile ground for things to be sowed, literally sow things together. That's Oshun's energy. Oshun's energy is about bringing people together. Like societies have been built always by the river, right? Where the first place people settle by rivers, right? Her fresh water, to drink our water, to have that source of life-giving energy, right? And so Oshun will often guide me to some kind of creative endeavor in my business. She's the one that will show me a color to use or a picture to use, and I really feel like she's very much responsible for that, but she's also responsible for bringing community together, right? So whenever I've like done retreats or anything like that, I will pray to her and I will say, this is, what we're doing here, because that's the other piece, Vanessa. I get guidance before I do any major thing in my business. If there is something, I will tell people that when you build that relationship with Orisha, you always have the best guidance on the planet. Or the divine guidance that comes down, because honestly, all my major big steps, I go and I get a reading. And that reading will inform me. It'll say, this is a great thing to do. Don't do that. Right. And I couldn't ask for more, right? How beautiful to know a direction to go in. It makes me feel very confident is what it does. Because things are scary. Let's be honest.
Absolutely.
Everything, even if you've been doing this a long time, right? Like when you go to that next thing, or I always talk about that next new thing or that next level, it gets scary again. Right? It may not be as jarring as it used to be, but it's certainly scary, right? You get that next big
Absolutely.
gig, right?
Absolutely. And a lot of times when people are at a place at work, they might get changes through a promotion, but they know the culture, they study how to succeed, and there's like that secure paycheck, etc. When you have your own business, you're constantly usually just trusting yourself, your guides, your higher self, the Orishas in your case, your angels, your ancestors. And I mean, sometimes you hire people, etc., and you get that support, whether it's a reading or whether it's a business coach. At the same time, it's your butt on the line. I mean, right? I mean, we're gonna break it down. It's you who's like literally hanging off a cliff, and your guides are like, "You have big wings, jump," and you're like, I don't know." And then because they tell you, or
Right.
because you hear it, that's what, like, even with this summit that we're creating, or that we're in right now, like I'm so busy with Peru, with our event in November, with so many things. And I was like, really? You want me to do this now? And it was like, you have to do it now. it must come out on the full moon in Aries that lights up the house of career, Vanessa. You must do it. Jupiter will be in Aries, and this is what needs to happen. And even though there'll be retrogrades, it's okay. And so, yes, we need, our angels, we need our forces of nature, we need our Orishas, we need our ancestors. We need that internal power to be able to move through the unknown and to learn to do more than survive. I believe that the Orishas and our guides, our angels, our ancestors help teach us how to survive because they had to, so we could be here. At the same time, we're learning how to thrive, right? Especially in your work in equity, especially in your work in liberation, especially in the work of ancestral healing.
Yes.
So I love all this. Like literally, I was like, can we do a day of this? I'll just talk and ask you questions. But maybe that's coming, who knows? But the
Yeah,
question next
right.
is for people who feel called to the Orishas, um, and who want to connect and are like, my family doesn't follow this. Um, what would you like? What do you suggest for them?
Well, I always suggest prayer first, right? Because in fact, that was how I was brought to it. And then I would tell people to pray for someone that is going to give them clean guidance, right? Because like so many things, there are people that are great in this tradition,
Yeah.
and then there are people that are not. And that's often an unfortunate piece, right? That's humanity. That's every religion, every spiritual practice around the world, right? And so I would tell people to pray for, if they are in fact interested in connecting to the Orishas, I would tell them first to pray to their own ancestral uh, realm of helpers, right? Their spirit guides, to ensure that they are brought to the right person.
Yes.
That's one way, right? Because the thing is that what is interesting about the Orisha tradition, and because of its history, it's not like you can go to a temple, right? I can't tell someone to just go down to 45th Street and 6th Avenue. There's a church there, right? No, you in fact must come through it through somebody that can refer you to somebody that they know. Now, I have been very, very fortunate. I have been with the same spiritual house. They call it a house in Ile for my entire journey within this tradition. I've been very fortunate. That's not always the case for a lot of people. And I have superb godparents. I mean, really the cream of the crop of humanity, right? And so it's important that they find someone that feels trustworthy to them, because you want to feel like who you're working with has integrity.
Yes.
But I say start with praying to your own ancestors, to ask them, in fact, if you feel called to this, to bring you to the right people and to help you find the right resources. This is not a tradition that can be learned online. It isn't. It's steeped heavily in a learning from your elders. Like many indigenous practices, it is about learning from elders. It's not about picking up a book. Now, you can learn some basic information, of course, but the actual ways in which we learn to live this and embody it is through our elders. So I would say to start with that prayer, and then I'm always happy to also refer people to my own godfather, who's amazing, and can give them a reading if they're interested. But um, that may be kind of limited in his availability.
Yeah. Question for you too. Do you suggest to people that for them to pay attention at all? I mean, prayer first to your ancestors. Like, are you attracted to the ocean, to go to the ocean, sit there, to go to the rivers, to connect with that force of nature? Have you ever, like, do you suggest that at all?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I mean, the bottom line is that's available to all of us, right? And so, yes, that prayer can always start from that place. In fact, it's the most powerful place because it's the place of origin, right? So, absolutely, 100%. Um, and that, even that same thing that I talked about, making an offering when you do it, right? Not anything crazy, like that you can research online. You can say, okay, what would I bring Oshun if I want to go sit by the river and ask her to show me what needs to be revealed to me, right? Oshun loves honey, for instance. That's one of her her main offerings that she loves, and there's so many other things. And that stuff you can look up online just to see what would be applicable, right?
I love that. And I can't end this without asking. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but how about Oya and when it comes to business, the energy of Oya?
Oh yeah. Oof. That's a beautiful energy. So the way we know Oya in nature is the wind. She's also the hurricanes, she's tornadoes, she's that massive change. So Oya is a very interesting energy because she's that energy that can sometimes come in and completely sweep everything out to rebuild, right? But she's also transformation itself. She's the agent of transformation. Oya is also directly connected to the ancestral realm. She's the gatekeeper to the ancestral realm. And so Oya's energy is one that you could be in the wind, you could feel a breeze coming at you, and you could say a prayer to her, and you can ask her for guidance again. If you specifically, if you're ready to transform something in your business, right? If you really want something to change, I'll say this, my prayer to Oya is always, can we do this mellow?
Manageable, mellow,
Right? I
kind.
definitely want to change, but don't sweep the house out before you do it, right? We'll do this, we'll do it. So yeah, that's just a little word of caution. Oya is a very powerful energy, a beautiful energy of transformation. So anything you want transformed in your life, including your business, you can definitely speak to her about. Yes. And I just want to say this before we go, Vanessa, that, it's really important that should we be interested in deities from other cultures, right? That we not just appropriate, but that we actually respect and honor that, right? This is not information that we're sharing for people to just start doing nilly-willy whatever they want with, but is in fact a way in which we are honoring those traditions, the people of those traditions, and the deities themselves, right? Because those deities want to be remembered and they want to be honored. And it's not just about, I'm going to run out and do a little, I'm going to go because this is what I want. It's again, back to reciprocity. If you're going to go to a deity and ask for something, make sure that, first of all, that your heart is clean about it, but also that you are in fact in reciprocity to that energy and not just there to take. I really think that's such an important thing that we all must make sure is happening.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And that is so important because we're in the era of that. I mean, it's been like probably 400 or 500 years of that, but now it's like even multiplied in different ways through social media where we're like, oh, and they hear something and suddenly they're saying, they quote it for themselves. And it's like, no, it's been around. Um, so important. Thank you for sharing that. Where can people find you?
Very easy. Cynthia Santiago-Borbon, my full name.com is my website, my Instagram, my Facebook, my LinkedIn. Yeah, very easy to find me, easy to contact me. I have a contact page on my website, and I'm happy to talk to people. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate this. I have had so much pleasure in getting to know you and, growing in our relationship together. And, we're working on some things together. And every time we have an experience together, I'm more and more certain of the divine bringing us into each other's lives for a reason. So thank you.
Gracias, Cynthia. I feel the same. And I'm very picky after a lot of things that I've been through in life with like who I co-create with. So I'm just, honored that you're here. I'm honored that you're speaking so freely and that we're in a time where you can speak freely and be safe, right? Because I know that it wasn't so. And that I can't wait. And so folks, follow Cynthia, Santiago-Borbon.com, find her on IG. Be atento, be open with your eyes open. For those who are in New York, we have select spaces for our beautiful, beautiful Sacred Pause retreat happening in November 12th, right? It's been a minute since we looked.
Yeah.
November 12th, it's been a minute since we looked at it because you know all the things that we're both working on. But check it out. I'll probably include the link too in somewhere in this summit as well to invite folks who are in New York or Philly, Connecticut in the area who want, or New Jersey or around or want to travel. And gracias por estar aquí. Thank you, Cynthia. Honoring your ancestors. Gracias, gracias, gracias to your ancestors. To the Orishas. Gracias, gracias, gracias for bringing us together. And thank you for folks who are here, and explore if you're called, explore with honor and reverence. Muchas gracias. Bye bye, everyone.